Welcome back to the Six Pennies podcast. So I know we keep calling it Six Pennies, and I swear there are three of us, but today we're down to another couple of pennies. It's just me and Albert. I'm in town in Dallas visiting with my wife and brought my kid here. He's out taking a walk right now with someone, with Albert's fiance. But so we're sitting in Albert's kitchen right now in the same room for the first time doing this podcast. So hopefully the quality is a lot better and we should be able to get rid of the phone buzzing, but no promises. So today we just want to do a quick podcast about the NFL season overall. We'll just start with this. We'll talk about the ratings for a second. From a rating standpoint, the NFL had a pretty down year. Ratings are down pretty much across the board. Monday Night Football was down 24% from last year. Sunday Night Football was down about 20%, 19%. And Thursday night was down 18%. So I think there's a lot of different factors going into that. A lot of people just blame Goodell, but Albert, what do you think is kind of the main culprit behind that?
What's up, guys? It's Albert. I would say this one caveat is that, yes, the NFL ratings are down, but I will say that the Cowboys, I'm a Cowboys fan, obviously, continue to break, ratings and draw great viewership.
That's fair, yeah.
And stuff like that. So if you want good ratings in the NFL, just continue to put the Cowboys in prime time. But with that being said, I think the ratings kind of took a downturn this year for many reasons, and I think the biggest reason is it just happened during the election. The Hillary-Trump debates were like must-see TVs on the same night that football was being played, and so I think that hurt it for a few weeks. What about you, Mok? What do you think?
Yeah, so the election definitely had, it was a pretty life-changing election overall. A lot of people tuned in for the first time to just the whole political scene, probably the both of us included. I know we both voted for the first time this past year.
True.
But for me, I'd say there's just no parity in the NFL. It's the same teams, and I think people are starting to get tired of it. So compared this year to last year, so 2015 to 2016, I think everyone just kind of expected the same couple of teams in the playoffs again. So just from the AFC standpoint, last year, you obviously had the Broncos winning it all with that amazing defense and Peyton Manning kind of riding off in the sunset. And the Bengals made the playoffs last year. They won the AFC North. But those are the only two changes from this year. So this year, the Patriots always, that division's kind of, everyone makes fun of the AFC South with the Texans and everything's calling it really weak. I say the East is pretty weak too.
Yeah, the East is a joke. I agree.
Other than the Patriots. But again, one of the surprises this year was Miami making it. But I don't think anyone still, even after they made the playoffs, and I don't think anyone really took them seriously. Texans won their division again. Kansas City came in second seed, and Pittsburgh got in there as well. And
so I have an interesting fact about the AFC East. Can you name me? So since Brady has become the, full-time starter for the Patriots, they've basically won every year,
right,
except a couple years. Can you name the quarterback? There's only been one quarterback, and he won it twice.
If it's one,
who do you think beat Brady?
How do they win twice? So I know one year had to be the year Brady went out, where he went out with the ACL tear.
Yeah.
And I want to say the Jets probably won that year with, I can't even remember, the butt fumble guy. Butt fumble guy?
No, so it's not Sanchez. But yeah, the one year that Brady tore his ACL, the Matt Castle year when he won 10 games, they missed the playoffs. But it was Chad Pennington, and he is the only quarterback in the last 15 odd years to win that division.
Pennington won twice?
So I got my facts wrong. Pennington won the division once, but he's won comeback of the player twice.
Wow.
So Chad Pennington, guys, props to him.
And that's just tells a sign of how weak that division is outside of the Patriots. Patriots are amazing every year, and so other than that, so that's kind of the AFC picture. Kind of the same four teams that you'd expect, with a couple surprises with Miami, but not like they had any chance really. And who else made it this year? So the Broncos were out this year with, I don't know, just a lot of factors. I think they had injuries. The quarterback play obviously went down, and defense had to take a step back. They were at an all-time high last year.
Yeah, that was a historical defense last year.
Yeah, but from a surprise standpoint, I say the NFC was more surprising this year with Panthers, the kind of defending NFC champ, not even making it to the playoffs, and Cowboys jumped up there, had a great regular season. So I'm glad we waited a couple, or at least a week after last week, to kind of let both of us recover from last week's playoff games. But what are your thoughts overall about the NFC this year?
Yeah, I mean you're right. Carolina was surprising. Was surprising. So I live here. I live here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and going into this season after Romo's injury, everyone's like entire perspective on this season was we need another high draft pick. Like they didn't believe in this year. They thought this year was another throwaway after Romo's second major back injury.
That's true. That was in the preseason?
Yeah, that was the game against Seattle. Yeah. And then, so Dallas is a surprise. To me, another big surprise, and it's more about the coach, and it's Chip Kelly. So you go from the NFC East in Philly to the NFC West in San Fran, and you get fired again. And that to me is just crazy. So that to me is very surprising. Another big thing is the Falcons. I had no idea they were gonna, turn it around so quickly. I know that they focused on their defense the last couple of drafts, but it's coming to fruition. That defense is playing a lot better than people expected, and then they've always had the high-powered offense.
That's true. So we'll probably come back to them a little later on in this podcast. But what about the opposite side? Where are some of the flops of the NFL this year?
Yeah, the biggest flop, it has to be Carolina and Cam Newton. I mean, I'm a huge Cam Newton fan. I think
Same here.
Yeah, he's like. He does everything for that team. Like, he's even their defense because of the way they control the ball in offense. But again, I'm just going to reiterate, it's probably a West Coast team. It's either San Francisco, that's surprisingly bad, or LA or San Diego. Those Californian teams this year was just terrible. It was unwatchable at times.
Yeah. All right, so you brought up Romo, and I know you have a little bit to say about him. What do you think?
Yeah, so Tony Romo, I used to be a Romo-sexual. I fully admit when he burst onto the scene in like 2006, he was really fun and exciting to watch. But ever since then, multiple surgeries, multiple injuries, it's really robbed him of his athleticism and quickness. He used to move around the pocket, even run with the ball. He was basically kind of like Aaron Rodgers, to be honest. But ever since then, he's never been the same. He can't even take a hit. And with the emergence of Dak Prescott, who I love and really respect, it just seems like Romo needs to go. And what's funny, Mok, is that Vegas actually has like these betting odds in regards to where they think Romo is going to go next year.
Okay, I like where this is headed.
Yeah, anything betting, we're gonna try to like loop into our podcast. But guess what? The number one odds teams for Tony Romo is for next year.
Well, off the top of my head, before we talked about it before, I was thinking Broncos or Jets for me. Just their quarterback situations are a complete mess.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so according to Bovada, a very popular sports betting website, the number one odds is Broncos at plus 400. Your team, Houston Texans, plus 400.
Oh boy.
The Bills at plus 500, and then the biggest long shot is the Browns at plus 2,500. So how do you feel about Romo to the Texans?
So on paper, yeah, I would take him at the right price, obviously. So I've been hearing these ridiculous rumors recently with like looping in. I really heard or read this tweet somewhere saying like J.J. Watt for J.J. Watt for Romo, and I think even the Texans would include a pick in that. And I'm
wow!
Why would we ever do that? Like J.J. We would have to change our commercials for like every single station. He's in like 95% of the commercials in Houston right now. Even this past year when he was injured, or he probably had more time this year when he was injured. But there's definitely injury risk for both of them. Let me just say this about the Texans quarterback situation. Everyone's talking about, well, clearly right now everyone hates Osweiler, Brock Osweiler. This time last year, or in last offseason when that signing day came and we signed both Lamar Miller and Brock Osweiler on the same day, everyone was kind of overjoyed, and myself included. I just didn't think so. I didn't see that much of Osweiler before. He's obviously still a young guy. He's had, I think this is his first full season in the league as a starter, and I thought his floor would be higher. So I thought his floor would be right below average, but seeing as he's still young, I thought his potential would be not elite. I don't think he would ever be top 5, but above average. We'll say top 12, like 11, 12, maybe right around threshold of where Matt Schaub was at his best here. Like that's what I thought he would be, kind of groom himself into. Especially Bill O'Brien. He's always being touted as this quarterback guru, but I just haven't seen it yet. But at the time,
I think that reputation is more from college.
From college,
yeah.
Because so far, well, for me last offseason, I was just happy in general that the Texans were spending money. They took a risk. They spent a ton of money on their offense, on speed. They drafted speed, but for everyone to say that the Texans are just like one QB away from winning it all, I think it's a little premature. I can't put this whole season on Osweiler. Overall, in the game last week against the Patriots, I think he played pretty well until it was garbage time. And, I mean, we all saw the drop that Will Fuller had in the end zone. That changed the game. I think it was over after that, right?
That was a dime by Brock.
Yeah, that was his best throw maybe of the season. And
I think
it
it
went
was.
right through his hands.
Yeah.
But, again, we knew that about Will Fuller during the draft. That was the one thing they said. He's fast. He's like the 7-up guy on the replacements. I always say, like, he's fast, but you can't catch, like, you can depend on him for a drop a game.
Yeah, when that happened, Twitter kind of exploded and basically called him Ted Ginn Part 2.
Yeah, and that was what I was afraid of. And we're kind of treating him like that right now, too. He's pretty much a deep threat specialist, and he returns kicks right now. But I don't even trust him back there catching punts right now. Like, unless he has, like, a ton of room to, like, maybe bobble it and pick it back up. But he is fast. I'll give him that. I would love Romo on the Texans at the right price. I personally think he still has some left in the tank. So if we did get him or another quarterback of that caliber, I don't see it happening just because we spent such a high investment on Osweiler. I think, we're kind of stuck with him for at least this next year. I don't see how we drop him after 1 year. And for everyone saying Tom Savage had the game of his life in relief of Osweiler against the Jaguars this year. And it might have saved our season, but to say that he's better than Osweiler, I think is a big mistake. There's a reason he's never made it in the league so far. And so Romo, bottom line, the highest I'd feel comfortable giving up a pick for him would be maybe 4th round, 5th round, right around there. But yeah, if I were to put money on it, I wouldn't go Texans just because we're kind of loyal to a fault with our quarterbacks. Like, we stuck with David Carr until the very, very bitter end, and
Matt Schaub
until people were like picketing outside of the Reliance Stadium. But yeah, let's talk about current NFL playoffs real quick. Take a little turn. Just touching on the ratings a bit. I see that kind of in my own life. Like, so before, I would always say that the NFL was the one sport where I could sit down and watch any random game. It wasn't like the NBA. Like, I can't do that with the NBA anymore. Like, NBA, I can really only watch like 2 teams. If it's not the Rockets, then I'm watching either like the Spurs or the Hawks before they got Dwight. Now it's really just the Spurs. I think they just play beautiful basketball. But NFL playoffs, like, including the Texans, this playoffs, like, I've only seen a total of 3 quarters. I saw the last half of the Texans loss to the Patriots, and I saw the fourth quarter of the Dallas game last week. But other than that,
Too soon, man. Too soon.
yeah. But it was, all things considered, like an instant classic. Like especially those last 4 minutes of the game. But other than that, I think every other game other than the Dallas game and the game right after that, which again Steelers,
Pittsburgh, Kansas City.
The Steelers and Kansas City game. Everything else was a complete blowout.
Yeah, yeah. Earlier you mentioned that my fiance is walking your son outside right now as we record this podcast. Me and her kind of got into a little argument last week. I basically told her like this is the least amount of sports I've ever watched in my life because there's always errands to run like Bed Bath and Beyond, Crate and Barrel.
Sure.
You guys know how it is, but to be honest, there's really nothing that I'm missing. You're right. The first weekend of the NFL playoffs, all the home teams won, and not only did they win, they blew out the opposing team.
They won going away.
Yeah, I think it was like 6 straight playoff games that were covered. So the favorite covered until the Cowboys game because Cowboys I think were favored by 5.5 and obviously they lost. But yeah, let's get into this weekend. So this Sunday we have Green Bay at Atlanta at 2 p.m. and then we have Pittsburgh in New England at 5:40 p.m. So what do you think about the Packers and Falcons game?
So the four teams that are left are actually very intriguing for me. So if I'm gonna watch, I'm gonna watch these two games if I can. If I kind of make it back in Houston, I'll probably be driving. Maybe I'll listen to it on the radio or something. But Packers, I don't see how you go against them right now. Their defense is horrible. Everyone kind of knows that. Clay Matthews coming back was huge, but it's obviously always been all Aaron Rodgers. I think he kind of proved last week. Like you can't give him any amount of time. He throws the best Hail Mary in the game, maybe ever. Anytime he has the ball in his hands with the clock winding down, I feel like if you're cheering for the other team or you're cheering for the under or whatever you're cheering for, if it's not Rodgers, you should be pretty scared. I haven't heard the injury report. I don't know if Nelson's back, Jordy Nelson's back, or if Devontae Adams has recovered from his ankle. But no matter what, I don't see how you go against Rodgers. I'm also very biased against Matt Ryan, though. I've never believed in him.
Yeah, you hate Matt Ryan.
I don't hate him per se. I just think he's very overrated. Like I think he shrinks in the spotlight, and I think he's a fantasy football quarterback. Like you can put up the stats, but when it really counts, you can kind of count on him for a turnover or to just overthrow the ball or something.
Yeah, he's very Romo-esque in that way.
Right.
He has all the tools and all the numbers, but he hasn't had that quality win or a Super Bowl under his belt. But yeah, to go back on Aaron Rodgers, the current run that he's on from a quarterback position might be like the hottest, the greatest 7-8 game run in the history of the NFL. Like I liken it to Michael Jordan scoring 40 points in 11 straight games or something like that. It's crazy what Aaron Rodgers is doing.
He is single-handedly carrying that team.
He is.
Defense, nothing.
Yeah, he single-handedly beat Dallas last week. I'm not going to say it was just him because I think we were playing against the refs too. But for me, for this week, I actually think the Falcons are going to win. I think that Aaron Rodgers' magic is going to end. He's going to throw 1 or 2 picks this week. I think that they're gonna be the ones that have to come back, and so he's going to have to do some pressing and forcing the issue, and so he's going to throw a pick or two. I think Atlanta is just like so balanced as a football team. I think they can run it. They obviously can throw it with Julio and Taylor Gabriel and their tight ends and stuff, but. Yeah, I think it's Atlanta for me.
No, you're right. They're very underrated, kind of top to bottom. So let's do this. Say you put all of Green Bay's players and all of Atlanta's players into a bag, like a draft.
Okay.
So obviously Aaron Rodgers probably comes out first, right? And then Matt Ryan is somewhere in there, maybe top 5, top 3 picks. I don't know who the next Clay Matthews is probably up there, but
It'll probably be Julio and Clay,
yeah,
in the top five.
but honestly, looking overall, like maybe most of the top 20 picks is what I'm saying would kind of go to Atlanta, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But obviously, the number one pick, Aaron Rodgers. We're going to talk about the greatest NFL quarterbacks coming up in a couple of minutes, but that's a big pick. So we'll see. I'm hoping it's a shootout, personally.
Yeah, I mean, going back to that bag analogy, the only Green Bay Packers I can think of are a healthy Jordy Nelson,
Right.
Aaron Rodgers, obviously, and yeah, Clay Matthews. Other than that, there's really no one else I can think of. Let's move on to the second game. Pittsburgh and Antonio Brown and all that controversy with Facebook Live, traveling to Gillette Stadium in New England, where they never lose in the playoffs. So,
Yeah.
who do you think will win?
No, that comes to. I'm glad you brought up Facebook Live. Kind of brings to mind another point I was going to make earlier about the ratings. I feel like in a lot of ways there's too much technology now. Like,
Good point.
back in the day, before the days of challenging, before the days of HD TV, before you could rewind on your own TV and kind of look at a call and review everything, like people just, the refs were just kind of there and no one complained that much. Like you couldn't like hinge a whole game on the ref like reasonably. Like
Yeah.
there are always fans that did, but nowadays I feel like everything, like you can look back and one call is so pivotal, and especially for a closed game, you can really like pinpoint exactly where a ref screwed up, exactly where a call should have been made, or the wrong call was made, or whatever it might be. But yeah, Facebook Live. So Antonio Brown, I don't know why he did that. Obviously, like he's kind of trying to market himself right now. He's kind of everywhere now.
So it recently just came out that he is actually getting paid by the amount of time that he Facebook Lives. So that video that he got caught, in the locker room was 17 minutes long. Like who Facebook Lives for 17 minutes anyways?
I respect that. Get paid, Antonio. But so that second game, I'm obviously going for the Steelers. I hate the Patriots. They're one of my most hated teams in all of professional sports. But I just don't see Patriots winning. Patriots losing, especially being at home. This is kind of their thing. Belichick, you give him a week to prepare for your team, and he's gonna find your one weakness and really twist it on you. So I'm hoping both of these games tomorrow. I'm hoping they're both gonna be shootouts. So I hope it's gonna be a high scoring affair. But I just don't see a way that Brady chokes this one away.
But I agree with you in terms of Belichick, Brady, and Gillette. Like those three together in January is almost unbeatable. But what would be, Pittsburgh's weakness? Because if you take away Antonio and those guys on the outside, then you have to deal with Le'Veon, and he's probably the best running back in the game. I think that team, if there's one team that can kind of stump or take down Belichick, it has to be Pittsburgh. They have the weapons.
I hope so. Yeah, they definitely have the offensive weapons, but I think I don't know what their ratings are right now defensively, but I'd have to give the edge to Belichick and the Patriots defense. I feel like they're always, really solid. They're not going to beat themselves, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, they always have, like a no-name guy step up and make, like a Malcolm Butler play or something like that. That franchise is the luckiest franchise ever.
Yeah.
With that being said, so as a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I love, looking at NFL history and teams' legacies and stuff like that, I'm actually hoping the Patriots win, because if the Steelers were to win and also win the Super Bowl, I think they'll have 7 Super Bowls, and Dallas only has 5. So
you're going to give Brady another one?
Yeah, if New England wins, that's only 5. Not only, but he has 5 and Dallas has 5. So there's not another team that is greater than the Cowboys. And so, to recap, I picked the Falcons. I want the Patriots, so I'll go ahead and pick the Patriots as well.
All right. So what about the big game 2 weeks from now in Houston Super Bowl? Who do you have winning then?
So between the Falcons and the Patriots, I actually think between the Falcons and either of the teams. So Falcons Steelers or Falcons Patriots, I'm gonna pick Atlanta.
Come on.
And
No.
that's
No.
not even that's not even like, biased because I'm a Dallas fan, but I just think they're the most balanced, and I think that when it comes to Super Bowl venues, like it's usually indoors or in great weather locations. So I don't think the elements have anything to do with it, and I think that just like favors Atlanta's high scoring offense and that machine. And I just think they're gonna shock the world, baby. They're gonna shock the world.
You're setting up Matty Ice to fail right now. He already can't handle the pressure. You're giving him all the pressure in the world on this Six Pennies podcast that he's gonna beat either one of them, Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady, possibly the greatest quarterback of all time.
His nickname will finally be justified. Matty Ice.
Who gave him that nickname? Did he? Is that a self-proclaimed one as well?
It's probably his dad or something.
Gosh. All right, so while we're on the topic of Brady and just quarterbacks in general, I wanted to touch base a little bit on the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So Albert especially likes to talk about the Mount Rushmore. So you want to intro this?
Yeah, I could definitely intro this. Like I stated earlier, I think Aaron Rodgers is having like the greatest run in quarterback history, this 8-10 game stretch or whatever. And so a lot of people, especially after that Dallas game, local media, national media, they're already putting Aaron Rodgers in like, greatest of all time discussion or top 3. Jason Garrett in his press conference already called Aaron Rodgers a top 3 quarterback of all time. And so that, that kind of perturbed me. Top 3, yeah.
Okay.
So that kind of perturbed me a little bit, and that's why I was like, "Hey, Jonathan, let's get on a podcast and let's talk about quarterbacks." And like you said, I like to talk about Mount Rushmores and the top 4. And this is not in any order right now, but the top 4, I think we can both agree that these 4 are Joe Montana, Peyton Manning, the Sheriff, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers.
So,
is it too early to put in Aaron Rodgers? What do you think?
No, I don't think it's too early for Mount Rushmore. I didn't. This is the first time I'm hearing about that quote. I'm surprised you put him top 3. I hate when reporters always ask Jerry Jones his opinion and stuff like that. But this time, I actually want them to ask Jason Garrett who's his top 3 then? Like who is he bumping down? Is Brady? He can't put Rodgers above Brady, right? So numbers-wise, let me just spit out some numbers for you. Aaron Rodgers obviously has the least number of games out of those 4 we just mentioned. He's at 142 games, almost 100 less than Tom Brady. His completion percentage is at 65.1, which is behind Peyton Manning, but just barely. And if everything holds, it's hard to project. Obviously, like you're factoring in so many things like health and how long they can do it. But Aaron Rodgers, I think at the end of the day is going to be top 2. Like
top 2, wow.
At the end of his career. But if we're talking about right now, and I know we don't want to necessarily rank, but I just have to talk about Manning versus Brady for a bit. So I hate how everyone's kind of automatically put Brady in the greatest of all time conversation, like one of one. And I think a lot of that obviously is due to all his rings. He has 4 Super Bowls already, and if he, in a couple of weeks, he could be going for his 5th one. But so in my mind, Brady is a lot like Kobe Bryant. I hate them both, and I think Kobe's first couple rings, like you can't even attribute that to him. So Kobe, we all know like that 3-peat with the Lakers. He was a very young guy in the league, and Shaq carried them. I always tell people like whenever this argument comes up that you replace Kobe with any shooting guard, any starting shooting guard in the NBA that year, and Shaq still carries them to those first 2 easily.
And any shooting guard or
any starting shooting guard.
Oh wow, that's
how dominant Shaq was. Like no one could stop him.
I mean, I'm not going to discount what Shaq did during those early years, but Kobe Bryant, even though he was young in age, he was probably still a top 5 shooting guard at the time. So you're saying
at the time, yeah.
You're saying the 29th ranked, NBA shooting guard would have won with Shaq that year.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how and that's not necessarily it. It sounds like I'm just bashing on Kobe, but that's really just crediting Shaq's dominance at that point. There was no one who could stop him. Like your only chance was to flop all the time, like kind of Vlade Divac did, and hope you get the call, or you just bombard him with fouls, kind of also like Sacramento did. You bring in like a Scott Pollard to just do nothing but foul him. But going back to the NFL, so Brady, those first few years, he's never had. So he has 4 Super Bowls, Super Bowl rings. First one was in 2001, then 2003, 2004, and 2014. So he's never, those 4 years, the worst defense was the first year, 2001, and it was still a top 6 defense. 2003 at a top, I think he number 1 overall. In the 2004, he was number 2 overall. So I'd say, and those defenses were amazing, especially those second and third rings. And he did get the Super Bowl MVPs, but they weren't like gaudy numbers. Like they weren't.
Yeah.
They have to give it to someone, and it's honestly really hard to win Super Bowl as a quarterback and not get the MVP. And he did it one of those years. It was Deion Branch. They gave it to the receiver instead. So, I mean, what do you think about the Brady and Manning thing? So going back to my original point, Manning versus Brady. Manning has 5 regular season MVPs.
Wow, that's
5.
a ton.
That's tied or outright for the most. Brady, in comparison, only has 2, and that's very telling because they were playing the same era, more or less. Manning came in the league 2 years ahead of Brady, but all that time, I feel like Manning changed the game, and he was always the kind of de facto number 1 overall quarterback. That was kind of understood. Like there was never an argument until maybe like the last couple years when Manning's arm just fell off and Brady kind of became the number 1 overall. That's why Manning has all the MVPs.
Yeah, I mean, since we're doing NBA comparisons, Brady to Kobe, I kind of liken Manning to like a Kareem. I think just the amount of games, the amount of opportunities to throw the ball, he's going to accumulate the stats. So yards, touchdowns. He also has a ton of MVPs, just like Kareem did, and a couple rings. And I mean, all props to Peyton Manning. But I think the fact that his arm did fall off in the last couple of years is telling to what Brady, potentially may end up. Because to me, I don't see Brady slowing down. Like, I know he's 40, close to 40 or whatnot, but he still has, like, everyone still believes he's still in his prime. So it's like, when is this guy gonna slow down? When is his arm gonna fall off? We don't know. So even if he plays, 2 or 3 more years, these gaudy stats that Peyton has in terms of yards and touchdowns and just the volume, Brady may surpass it. And so to go back on, Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady, for me, and I know you hate this, but I just think it's Tom Brady because, during Peyton Manning's prime, actually they both went into their primes at the same time, basically. Peyton Manning had, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James. They were playing in a dome. They had just an offense that was built for numbers and touchdowns and stats. On the other side, you had Brady. For the most part, he didn't have, those type of weapons, and he played outdoors, so it's more of a running style. Corey Dillon, LeGarrette Blount, and so on and so on. But the one year, the one time that the franchise did give him weapons, they gave him Wes Welker, Randy Moss, in 2007, and he set the record for most touchdowns. They went 16-0. They obviously lost to Peyton's brother, but if he just had like 2 or 3 seasons with those guys in their primes, like his numbers would even be more crazy.
But you're also, I feel like, heavily discounting the Belichick factor. So we could talk about this at a future podcast, kind of the greatest of all time coaches, but Belichick has to be up there if he's not number 1 overall already.
Hands down.
Right?
Yeah, hands down.
So I just feel like Brady, man, he just kind of has it all going for him, and Manning kind of set the precedent. He changed the game. He's the first play caller who kind of goes up to the line really quick and kind of does what Rodgers does now. He's probably the best in the league at it. Kind of catch you off guard when you're not ready. Gets his team gets set first, and then he surveys the defense, makes audibles at the line. And you didn't need an offensive coordinator. Like, I couldn't tell you who the offensive coordinators for him were his entire career. Like, you just didn't need it.
Yeah, that's true.
You just hand the entire offense over to Manning, and he takes care of it. And Manning never had, like, maybe only his first Super Bowl is the only year he maybe had like a half decent defense. And so I don't know. We could talk about that all day. Let's talk about a couple honorable mentions real quick.
Okay.
So Drew Brees, we looked him up, and
from Austin, Texas.
yeah, he has the best completion percentage out of all the QBs we've mentioned at 66.6. So he's right at 2/3, and his yards are way up there. He has 5,000 more yards than Brady at this point. I assume he's younger. 465. So he has more touchdowns, more picks as well, and yeah, he has one less season than Brady overall.
So would you put, with that being said, because Drew Brees' numbers, are amazing.
They're kind of insane, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he did have a year where he got hurt too with his elbow. So the thing is, with all these quarterbacks, they for some reason would miss a year. So Brady with his ACL,
Yeah.
Manning with his neck, Brees with his elbow, and so these guys, if they were healthy their whole entire careers, they would even have crazier numbers. But what I wanted to get into is, with all the stats that you're listing off for Drew Brees, are we sure that Aaron Rodgers is already ahead of him?
Ahead of
Drew Brees? Yeah, because so Aaron Rodgers has two
That's fair.
two MVPs. Drew Brees has 0, but they both have one Super Bowl ring and one Super Bowl MVP. So it's a wash there. And then Brees, his record-setting numbers are just ridiculous. And so maybe we're crowning Aaron Rodgers a little too early.
Yeah, Rodgers definitely needs at least one more ring to get up to top 3 discussion in my mind. Like, he's a 4 right now, and he's still, especially compared to these guys, he's very young. So he's hopefully has a lot of years left. Another name we looked up is Dan Marino, and I'm kind of surprised. Like, his compared to these other 5 QBs, so Joe Montana, Peyton, Tom Brady, Rodgers, and Drew Brees, his numbers kind of suck. Like, he's the only guy under 60% completion percentage.
That was very surprising.
He has the most interceptions in the least amount of games. He has 252 picks, which is one more than Peyton does in, I think, 24 less games.
Yeah.
So, and we all know he never won the Super Bowl. He has 1 MVP. So, Dan Marino obviously out of the Rushmore discussion at this point.
Yeah, he's definitely not top 4. But I will say one thing about Dan Marino is that he played in a different era.
Yeah.
Like, that era, they didn't throw the ball 65% of the time,
That's
as you
a good
see
point.
now. So maybe his numbers, his arm, I do remember just watching him as a kid. He would make crazy throws, like Brett Favre.
Yeah.
They had the arm, but he just didn't have the team around him to win a Super Bowl, or maybe it was him.
He had a couple chances. But
I think, didn't he make the Super Bowl as a rookie or something like that?
I can't remember. That was before my time.
Yeah.
Before my NFL time.
I don't think we were born yet, to be honest.
But that brings up another point with today, the new NFL, we'll call it, like pass happy, and that's just gonna push up Aaron Rodgers' numbers
That's
even
true.
more. Like,
Very true.
It's gonna be insane. I don't see any way, unless with a freak injury or something, that he doesn't pass all these guys in yards, touchdowns, and while having the least number of picks. Like, he only has 72 picks right now, and compare that to Brady, he has 152 in obviously 100 more games, but we'll see. The percentages are amazing right now. Touchdown percentage to interception percentage.
Yeah, you would have to fact check me on this, but I think Aaron Rodgers has the highest quarterback rating in the history of the NFL. So
Yeah.
he definitely has that going for him.
Yeah, and unlike Brady, we'll see. Unlike Brady, he doesn't I don't know who's his biggest competition right now. Like if we're talking about other than Brady, so who are the top QBs in the league right now that you can say Rodgers is in competition with?
Yeah, it's really Rodgers by himself.
Right.
I think the four best QBs are playing this weekend. So
Yeah.
Brady, Rodgers, Big Ben, and Matt Ryan. So it's hard to say. Yeah, you're right. Like Aaron Rodgers may not have that person, that rival that Manning and Brady were for each other, but I don't think that should hurt Brady, or I don't think that should hurt Rodgers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't think like Jordan really had a rival or.
Clyde the Glide?
No, nice try there.
Maybe just the Pistons in general. But yeah, that about wraps it up. It's a big weekend for the NFL, a big couple weeks for the NFL, with the Super Bowl coming up in Houston in a couple weeks. So thanks for tuning in, and Albert, you want to sign us out?
Yeah, so please follow us on Facebook, Six Pennies Podcasts, our Twitter account, Six Pennies Pod, and our YouTube channel, Six Pennies Podcast. So thank you again, guys, and let's go Matty Ice.